Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Dharma Bum Show. Um, got some channel news we'll go through and some other stuff. First of all, a wonderful thank you to everybody who has been liking and subscribing to the channel and the videos. I really appreciate all the love and support for the channel. We're going to keep making some videos for you, so we're really happy that you like the content. And thanks for the support. Also, so much thanks this week to all the financial donors. You know, we never ask for that, but we really appreciate everything. And it's going to allow us to make quite a few more videos. And also, we were able to up our game a little bit. You might notice that my microphone sounds considerably better. See it right there? That little fuzzy dead cat on my lapel. And so it's quite a nice microphone, actually. And we didn't spend a lot of money on it. But now maybe we will sound almost as good as our dear Lama Choga. Um, we'll see how that works out, but it should be better. And so the videos are going to be better and higher quality, thanks to your donations, and also hopefully we can put out some more of them in the near future as well. So thank you to the kind financial donors. We appreciate that. So yeah, let's dive into it. The title of the show is Spiritual Technology. And one of the things we're going to do before we begin to talk about what is spiritual technology, and we're going to look at some of the spiritual technology because we have some here. I have the altar set up. Let's go ahead and take a look at that today, folks. So there it is here on the table. And today I have all the elements. Yay. So we've got the incense burning, we've got the candle lit, we have a drink offering, which is water. I did forget my flowers, but I found a legitimate offering. This was a beautiful pine cone that fell down, and normally I save them for myself, but in today's little pine cone that we found on our walk here, we are going to give to Lord Buddha. So we are going to offer it up, and then we'll leave it behind here in nature the way we do with our water offerings when we go. So we have the full altar set up today for you, and like I said, we're going to demonstrate specifically spiritual technology. So yeah, but first let's start with, okay, so if it's spiritual technology, okay, then what powers it, right? Technology is powered by something. Your phone is technology. It's powered by a lithium-ion battery. The laptop is technology. It's powered by a plug that you put into the wall. Okay, so what powers spiritual technology? And the answer, at least for Buddhists, is pretty simple. It's prayer. That's it. Okay, so let's take a quick moment to talk about prayer. And you know that my videos are sort of specifically aimed at the audience of Western converts, many of us Christian converts, over to Vajrayana Buddhism, right? So let's look at the difference then. Let's start with that. What is the difference in prayer between sort of, Orthodox Christian versus a Buddhist? And so this is my take on it. And this is just, again, only my ideas, okay? But so in Christianity, I prayed a lot. I was a very devout Christian, okay? And that process, the prayer is geared towards fundamentally two things. The biggest one, more than anything, is devotion, okay? You are offering praise, your loyalty, and your devotion to whomever you're praying to. It could be God, it could be Mary, it could be one of the saints. a human who has transcended in Christianity to a saint. Okay, even the angels. All right, and so you're offering them devotion, and then the second part of that, which is up most of the time quite a bit less, but not always, and there's a communicative aspect. You're praying oftentimes for something, or for someone, or for some auspicious thing to happen. Okay, and you're communicating that, and you're maybe even asking for advice back. You're maybe even hoping that somehow the communication might be two-way, whether it's by way of just feelings and ideas, or sometimes you might actually hear God. This is possible. Okay, um, and so that kind of, for me, sums up my ideas of prayer in Christianity. Now, with Buddhism, it's quite a bit different, to my mind. Um, with Buddhism, prayer is more about intention. It's more about informing the universe of how you intend it to be. Okay, and there is a devotional aspect to it. If you're praying with or to, like, say, Green Tara, who is my two boys who are here today. They're being very quiet. It's very hot. We're in the midst of a huge heat wave here in Northern California. But so a lot of times I'm praying, to the Green Tara for my boys, because she has proven herself to be their friend and guardian. They're both very. If I'm their papa, then Green Tower is their mama, right? And so this is just some personal stuff that I do, and so I might be communicating, a wish. Hey, Green Tower, would you please, protect my boys today? Or Green Tower, would you please give some extra healing to Xavier's eyes? He has an eye condition. All right, so. But even then, there's a slight difference, because I may not understand that I'm asking for Tara's personal, individualized attention, and I'm not really being communicative in the sense that I'm not asking for her to speak to me or offer me some advice. It's more of I'm trying to tap into Green Tara's energy. Okay? I'm trying to sort of gain access to her emanation, if you will. And in a way invoke that emanation, those energies, into my field of reality. So that actually goes back to my idea of Buddhist prayer, which is it's mostly about intention. There's a devotional aspect a little bit if you're using an entity, like, say, but you don't have to pray to anything in Buddhist prayer. You can simply pray, and you're not asking for something. You're not begging for something. You're not throwing yourself on your knees in devoted, humble request. You are informing the universe of how you intend things to be. Okay? My boys will be healthy and safe today. And I'm gonna, and where spiritual technology comes in, right, is then it takes that intention and it amplifies it. The spiritual technology that I'm going to show you today, that's what it's designed for. In one fashion or another, it is designed to amplify intention. And the idea being, the stronger that you can emanate your intention into the universe, the more likely that the universe will comply, and circumstances will be as you wish and be auspicious. Okay, so that's my take on prayer. Real quick, I'm going to show you, if it will come up for me. This book right here is the book. I have two prayer books. I'm going to link to them in the description. that I use and study also as well. In the case of this book that's on the screen, it's a common book of Tibetan Buddhist prayers. And one of the things that is special about this is they will, in their own words, say there's a chapter in there about what is prayer for Tibetan Buddhists and for Vajrayana Buddhists. And it very much coincides. I think if you read it, you'll find that using their own words and using their own sort of philosophical concepts, they pretty much say exactly sort of what I just said. So it will maybe give you an idea that the Dharma Bum isn't just making stuff up and willy nilly. This is the book, one of the prayer books that I use quite often. The other prayer book is the yellow prayer book from the Garshan Institute, and I will link to that as well. That one's free, the yellow book, and that just contains the prayers that I do every day as part of my core practice. And that's something else I wanted to point out about prayer is that I didn't get into it in my core practice. I consider prayer, daily prayer, and also daily chanting of the mala, to be part of my core practice, but it's not technically it's not it's an added layer that isn't part of the original sort of Buddhist teaching in the Pali Canon. Buddha doesn't talk about prayer, that much that I know of. And I've read the scriptures several times, the Pali Canon. But so what I would say so that's why I didn't include it in the core practice. But this is part of my core practice. Is I spend a couple of elements worth of time every day in prayer, and I split that between spoken prayer out of the yellow book, which I'll link to in the description, and the mela, where I just do Om Manis. So yeah, so that's prayer, and so this is the energy then that is going to fuel spiritual technology. Okay. And so let's get into it. What is spiritual technology? Well, in a rough sort of way, it's a term that I don't know that I got it from anywhere. I coined it myself, but it's the idea that you have artificed objects or devices, sometimes quite sophisticated machines, as we'll look at today, and that are have one principal purpose in mind, and that is to take the intention energy of your prayer and amplify that and make it stronger. And so and they all work they do this in just various different ways. So we'll take a look at those sort of ways. So the first one we're going to start with is the mala. Okay, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Right. So this is my mala, and it's very simple. I'm not sure what wood it's made out of. I guess I probably should know that, but it is from the Dharma shop, and there's a link on my site, and there'll also be a link in the description to get just a very simple wooden mala, but it's got the authentic. Now with the mala, for us, for Vajrayana Buddhists, there's a lot that goes into these knots. Are quite special. I've actually watched a video of how to tie them. I'm not very good at it yet, so I don't really want to start making my own malas anytime soon. And then the keystone bead, which has a prayer engraved on it. Okay, and there's 108 beads in ours, in the Buddhist malas. Okay, and I'll give a just brief, like, sort of history of the mala. It is actually traced back, believe it or not, to around the 8th century BCE, before the Christian era. So 800 years before Christ. It was originally the ancient seers in India who began using sort of beads to assist their meditation and their prayers. So it's quite ancient. And from there, it sort of diffused into Buddhism. And then from there, of course, one of the things about the prayer beads is that it's quite a it's a very powerful technology that works really, really well, and that's why it's been absorbed by so many of the world's major religions, right? Because from Buddhism, we then see it appear in Christianity, and then in Islam, and so uh, really being absorbed upward from that original starting point, 800 years BCE in India. It's really had quite a bit of uptake into the world's major religions. And the reason is quite simple. I mean, people don't do things that don't work. People use things that do work. And that goes for all technology. The reason you use your cell phone every day is because it does very cool things, right? And it's a very powerful tool. So things don't last millennium without there being like a really good reason for it. And in this case, it's because they work. I can vouch for it. I do it every day, and it's, to be honest with you, it's almost as powerful as meditation for me at this point in my practice. So very powerful. And then for us, it's very quite simple, right? There's 108, and you just pull the beads. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and you can think it or you can say it out loud or both, and then that's it. And you just eat for each one, and then when you get done, some people are keeping track. If they're doing a practice or whatever, you might be counting your prayers and keeping track in a journal, so you would know I did 108, right? Prayers on the beads. They all work different. I actually, as a Catholic, I have said thousands of Catholic rosaries. The Catholic rosary looks a little bit different. The Islamic and the Eastern Orthodox beads they have a number of beads, but they don't look that different. They probably have a different knot. I don't know for sure, but they don't look that different. You could almost see them piled up on a table and not even be able to tell unless you picked one up to look and see how many beads were on it, or the prayer on the center bead or whatever. The Catholics, however, really diverge. They have a stem, okay, that will. So there's the end of it, right? And on this part here, they will have a stem that will come down of beads and then a cross on the end of it, dangling on the end of it. So the Catholic one ended up looking a little bit different. And then they're divided up by decades, and there's spaces. Every decade, there's 5 decades on a normal sized rosary in Catholicism. I've said thousands of rosaries, and to this day, I can memorize the prayers to say the rosary. Quite complex set of prayers. It's a ritual almost, really. But in Buddhism, it's quite simple. It's just one mantra per bead, and if you're doing Om Manis, then it's just one Om Mani per bead, and then you're finished, and that's it. So there's our first spiritual technology, probably, to my mind, one of the most ancient. I would say arguably the most ancient of what I am talking about of spiritual technology for that at least that we Buddhists use. 800 BCE, so really kind of quite old. So for our next spiritual technology, we're going to talk about one that we've Lama Choga mentioned a couple of times. He's commented on my channel about seeing my own flying, and then he's also did a show on these sorts of things where he talked about it. But we're going to talk about prayer flags. So these are 6.5-inch set of prayer flags, one set. Okay, and it's got all the colors there, and each color has a different prayer, sort of engraved and printed, like on it. Okay, and then you have all different sizes, obviously, very, very large prayer flags, where each flag is, and where you can string them up, and they're like 50 feet of flags. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So they come in all different sizes. This is obviously from my portable shrine, my little. I have to keep everything small, right? So we heard sort of Lama Choga talk in one video about his take on the prayer flags and how they work. I'm going to give you sort of an added take on it as well. He talked about how like so the Himalayan peasants especially really sort of like this technology, this easy technology, and they will hang these, and then the prayer on each flag as the fibers of the flag are disintegrating and flying away into the wind, because eventually they just disappear. The prayer flags, you can see them in Nepal and Tibet, where they're hanging, and they just the older ones that have been there for like years are just gone, um, and so that's one sort of and take on it. Another could be, the sun fades the prayer out. So as the prayer is fading, it's sort of that intention is going. And now the intention that's being amplified in this case, though, is channeled specifically. There's like frequencies here, okay? Okay, and so each color and prayer, which you should look up, right, so that you understand what you're putting your intention into, because that's the intentions based on your own circumstance, but that's the intentions that are going to then be sort of amplified out into the universe. And that's my take on Tibetan flags. They don't need to disintegrate, in my mind. They work instantly, and they actually, to my mind, work more strongly when the prayers are still in good shape on the flag itself, and they haven't disintegrated or faded. Because the way I sort of visualize it provisionally in my mind, and a lot of people have this take on, especially within Vajrayana Buddhism, is that it's the intention you can almost visualize as the wind flaps the flag, the prayer itself just lifting right off the flag and floating like light into the universe, floating off in the direction of the wind out into the universe. And so it's sort of pulling, the wind is pulling the intention out of the flags and pulling it out into the universe to serve its purpose. And so that's how I see and feel and envision the prayer flags working. And so, yeah. So a brief sort of history of prayer flags. They actually started a little bit later, about the 4th century BC. And they actually seem to have, as far as we can tell, originated with Buddhism, and maybe going back to the original. There are legends and stories, some of them quite accepted as fact, that the prayer flag was actually sort of put forth and in use during the life of Gautama Buddha himself, Lord Buddha himself. So so we see it going back to basically the beginning of Buddhism. It doesn't seem that it does seem to me in my research that it appears around then. So another very ancient, right, spiritual technology that has really taken over, especially the imagination of all Vajrayana Buddhists from Japan to China, seem to be have accepted this. And so again, we go back to there must be something to this technology that it works so well. And think about it. You can put your intention, your prayer, again along the lines of understanding what these prayers are. But you can fuel this flag with intention, right? And then hang it, and your prayers are going out into the universe for however long this flag hangs. I mean, if you leave it there, if you're going to a temple, say, or whatever, and you're going to leave the flag, it could be there for years, putting your prayer out and your intentions out into the universe. So that's it's quite a powerful technology, and there's a reason why it has gained the foothold it has, and that reason is people, like I said, tend to adopt things that work. So that's prayer flags, another sort of spiritual technology. And so now, for our next spiritual technology, we're going to talk about musical instruments. It, as far as the history of using musical instruments in sort of religious practice, there's no date that you can put on that. It is literally the most ancient thing. I mean, people were beating on drums literally at the first funeral a human ever had 100,000 years ago, right? So, um, so the idea of using musical instruments as a spiritual technology, and in this case, the way that it, going back to my idea of amplification of intention, the way that it does that to me is by concentration. A musical and by also um, by oscillating it at a specific frequency, a lot like the colors of the prayer flags. Okay, so uh, um, the example that of course I would give, and we've got it right here today. We're going to move our prayer wheel out of the way, and you can see that we have our singing bowl here again today. Okay, and and then we have our ritual bell up here. All right, so these are musical instruments, and in the case of Vajrayana Buddhism, we went over this in the last episode on portable shrines, but and so I generally speaking use the singing bowl to either to cleanse the space uh, of the shrine and that I'm practicing in, or to start a meditation session and set the tone for that. And I find that is useful for that. And then for this up here, I use this to get the attention. If I'm, say, praying to Green Tara, as I spoke about earlier, then to sort of get Green Tara's attention, right, I will use that. And so that's pretty simple and basic, but the idea, again, of musical instruments, sitars, bells, gongs, drums, have all, literally there's no way you can put a date on it. Really, since the dawn of us beginning to have any religious practice at all, we almost certainly incorporated religious instruments as a spiritual technology into our practice. And so, yeah, that's that. And then last but not least, we are going to talk about, oops, let's get him back there like this. And okay, so we're going to talk about prayer wheels. That's mine, and it's a replacement. I actually wasn't going to replace the one. I had another one. I'm going to talk about it here in a second. You're going to kind of laugh. It's sort of funny. But, and I had another one, and it was solar powered. Okay, guys, don't laugh, but you've probably seen them. A lot of you might have seen them. And it was solar powered. It was all sort of plastic and bronze colored, gold colored. It had the gems on it and the prayers on the wheel. And then down at the bottom on the base, along the bottom of the base, had a tiny little strip of a solar panel that when you gave the wheel a little spin, it would continue to spin by way of the power of the solar energy for his own. And so kind of a novelty, right? That's kind of funny, right? I mean, hey, you know, in the Himalayas, they often rely on the wind to continue to spin their wheel. After they give it the initial spin, the wind will keep spinning it, or whatever, or just momentum. And but if you give it a spin and the sun spins it, is that still legit, right? I mean, it could go like for hours and hours and hours, right? I immediately, and I want to say a word to my sister because she's probably going to watch this video, and she gave me as a birthday present last year the solar powered prayer wheel, and it was about this size. It was about the same size as this one, but it was all plastic, and as I described, and my question always was with this one: is there a prayer scroll inside the wheel? With the solar one, because it was plastic and kind of cheesy, made in China, right? When I first started seeing them, however, was around 2000. I saw them in curio shops. I saw them appear in curio shops in San Francisco. The exact same one that I had that my sister got me for my birthday. And it actually came with a tiny little booklet, a little card that said the prayer. Yes, indeed, the prayer scroll is in there, so don't worry. And that kind of cut down the cheese effect, but it's the same device, and most likely those ones did have. I think nowadays you should be suspect of whether or not the solar ones actually have a prayer scroll in there. And we're going to allow Lama Choga today on my video to educate us on what the prayer scroll is and how it is inside of the prayer wheel. And because he gave me permission to clip from one of his videos, it's actually a live stream that he did. I'm going to clip a segment, and I'm going to play that for you right now. This is Lama Choga explaining the tiny little prayer scroll that is inside all Vajrayana prayer wheels. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that now.
Okay, this is a prayer wheel, or a mani wheel. So it contains prayers, basically. Let's see if we're going to disassemble this. So this is called a mani wheel, but it doesn't have to be a mani wheel. It could have any prayer in it, but in general, then they have Om Mani Padme Hum prayers in them. And so, you know, it's supposed to be like 1,008, right? So the mala has 108, right? So it's auspicious numbers. It's supposed to have 1,008. And I always joke and I say this is a Tibetan tradition because the Tibetans are really lazy. And what you do is you do one spin, and it's the equivalent of 1,008 of these. So it's a lot easier, you just spin it. But really, the way I like to put it is that we've got what are called the 3 gates of virtue. I've mentioned this before, right? The body, speech, and mind. These are all 3 gates of virtue. So it's all assembled like this. And inside, then this is a scroll of mani mantras. You can see the edge has been colored with saffron. The paper is yellow because we soak it with saffron. Now, normally what we do is we get all the prayers and then we lay them out and we kind of glue them together, and we use glue made from flour, like barley flour, so it doesn't have any chemicals in it. And then we paint them with saffron, and then we roll it all up, all by hand, put it inside of here, wrap a Om Mani Padme Hum mantra on the outside. I don't know if I can show you. Oh yeah, this one comes apart quite easily. So the previous one I had to return it to the monastery, was one I rolled myself, but you can see this is all, I don't know if the camera will pick it up. It's too blurry, isn't it? Anyway, it's all Om Mani Padme Hum mantras. There's a particular way that you have to roll it. It's all very specific, what's taught in the text. And then you put it inside. Now you could say, well, what's the point of that, right? That's just some kind of superstition. Now the Tibetans themselves are really into something called interdependence. I mean, in general, interdependence is important. So that's why everywhere you go, there's prayer flags, right? Prayer flags have got these prayers written on them, and they sit out in the wind as the wind blows, and all the fibers slowly over time decay. So all the prayers are being spread throughout the world, right? But again, it seems like superstition. And it's often called the Dharma of old men and women. If you go to Kathmandu, and then you'll see all the old men and women doing Kora. Sonia will know about this. Her husband does this. They'll do Kora around the stupa, spin their prayer wheels, and do it every morning and every evening. And it's got to do with this notion that interdependence is really important. Interdependence is really important.
Okay, so that's quite amazing, right? And so here's the story of what happened to the solar one. It lasted until sometime this winter, and we had a huge storm, and it was destroyed. And so I'm sorry, Amy Beth, I finally lost your prayer wheel. We got much enjoyment out of it, but we lost it. And I didn't want to crush it and break it open to find out if it had the scroll in it. I buried it because I was broken. I was attached and brokenhearted, especially because my sister gave it to me. But I replaced that prayer wheel with this one. I'm going to link to where you can get one of your own exactly like it. Again, it's sold at the Dharma shop. And a couple of things. It was verified by the Dharma shop people themselves and a customer that indeed that prayer scroll that you saw Lama Choga pull out of his is in fact in there. And you can feel it. It's got some heft to it, and you can actually feel the prayer scroll inside the little tin wheel. And so let's just give it a spin. And so, yeah, pretty basic prayer wheel. And so we just sent out what maybe it spun at least twice around, a couple of thousand Om Mani Padmes out into the universe, right? And so that's the idea, is you just, however, now the ones that and I don't remember the name that Lama Choga just said just now, but there's a special name for the ones that spin, that have the weighted chain on it and spin, right? But the vast majority of prayer wheels are actually like this, and they're huge. Like, they can be like the size of, multiple whiskey kegs, and hanging from these giant installations in Nepal and Ladakh in Tibet. You see them, right? And the people just. Okay, folks, so that is spiritual technology. The history of the Tibetan prayer wheel is, or the Vajrayana prayer wheel, Himalayan prayer wheel, is it does come from the Himalaya region. It begins in India and the Himalayan regions of India at about 400 or so AD. So it's quite a later development compared to some of the other spiritual technologies we looked at. So somewhere between 300 and 400 AD, we begin to see this technology. And something tells me, I don't know, my gut tells me this looks like a device. It's a very complicated machine, right? As far as spiritual technology goes. And it just strikes me as it might have been developed at Nalanda University. Um, but that's just a guess for my part. Um, so yeah, thank you very much for joining me on today's video. That's spiritual technology, again fueled by intention and prayer. And like and subscribe. There are links to the prayer wheel and the prayer books below in the description. And there are donation links if you care to as well, also in the description. And that's all. We'll see you the next video. I think will be on Buddhist academic education and how to get one for free. That'll be my next video coming up sometime this week. Thank you guys so much for everything. Let's give them the blessing, boys. So the boys are here. They're at my feet right now, here in the dog park where we shot today's video. And we'd like to offer you, the three of us, our blessing today. May everything be auspicious, and we'll see you again soon.